Hello and welcome to the Daily Aus. I'm Emma Gillespie.
I'm Zara Seidler.
Imagine the Olympic Games, except every competitor at those games are on performance-enhancing drugs. Enter the Enhanced Games. And while the announcement of such a competition caused quite the stir last year, prompting many to question its feasibility, we now know the Enhanced Games will go ahead. In a year's time, in fact. And in today's deep dive, we're going to take you through the latest on the Enhanced Games, from this launch announcement to one of the game's hopefuls who's already set a new and technically illegal world record, and everything in between.
Forgive me for interrupting the flow of today's podcast, but I did just want to shout out before we start that it's been, again, the best month of podcasts that the Daily Aus has ever had.
Woo!
And the way that this podcast grows is by you hitting follow and telling all of your friends to hit follow on whatever podcast platform you all listen on. We so appreciate your support. And now let's get into it. From that intro alone, I'm hooked and I want to know everything there is to know about the Enhanced Games. This is one of those stories that people feel very strongly about on both sides. I think we could have done a whole podcast on the pros and cons of what people believe of this. But talk to me about the premise of the Enhanced Games.
Yeah, so it's actually the brainchild of an Australian. Aaron D'Souza is a Melbourne businessman and he is the president and founder of the Enhanced Games. And he's been working to bring this vision to life of a professional athletics and swimming and weightlifting competition without drug testing. So athletes who participate will actually be given access to performance-enhancing drugs under medical supervision of the games, but they'll only have access to drugs that are legally prescribed. So drugs that are illegal according to global sporting bodies, but not illicit drugs under
So not like recreational drugs.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to get that out early in the podcast. I have so many questions, but I'll do them in order.
Yep.
Why does the founder and now president, I love when founders become presidents immediately.
That could be you.
That could be. I am the president of the Daily Aus. Why does this man want to put these games on?
So it's all about, for him, testing the upper limits of human performance, basically seeing what is possible, seeing what the human form is capable of on the pool, in the track, etc.
I feel like this is a real trend at the moment, specifically among a certain cohort of men.
Billionaires.
Correct. About this longevity push and how we can push our bodies to live the longest life possible.
To be the best.
Yeah.
So D'Souza is, I would say, in that category. And he spoke at this launch event this month where he said, quote, "The Enhanced Games are not just a competition, they're a movement. We're embracing the full spectrum of human potential.
Wow.
And that begins with transparency, science, and choice. The time is now."
It really is such a fascinating premise. I'm curious about the people who are participating, though, because I would assume that if you're participating and you're taking these drugs, again, under supervision, but you are then, I presume, ruling yourself out of other elite sports if you're taking these drugs. So who's participating here?
So the short answer is about money for these athletes in terms of the why they would participate. And I think it's particularly appealing to retired athletes as well. If they've already pushed themselves as far as they can go in professional elite careers, if they've already tried Olympics, they've tried to be the best in their field. This is a different sort of opportunity that doesn't exclude them from any competition. The games are backed by several wealthy investors. So we're talking about people like Donald Trump Jr., the US president's son, the billionaire PayPal co-founder Peter Thiel. And with that backing, the Enhanced Games is offering a $1 million incentive. So that's just over 1.5 million Aussie dollars for any athlete who can break the 100-meter sprint and the 50-meter freestyle world records as part of the Enhanced Games program. So these are track and swimming events. And if you're a retired athlete, that is an enticing offer. And it's exactly why we've heard some athletes who have already put their hands up say that they want to compete. Like Australian swimmer James Magnussen. He's a 2-time Olympian who won silver in the 100-metre free at the 2012 London Olympics. He's been pretty much the face of the enhanced games since he signed up last year. And he was incentivised by that promise of a prize for beating the 50-metre record.
So just to be clear, we're not seeing current elite athletes putting their hands up for this because they are not able then to compete at an elite level in more mainstream races, right?
Not yet. But with these monetary incentives, and we'll get into a few more of them in a bit, maybe if you are in the middle of the pack of your current sport, if you're ranked highly but, you're kind of out of medal contention, maybe this will be enough to convince you to switch.
I want to talk about that promise of prize money because the reason we're talking about this is because it was in the news last week. That prize money for the 50-metre record has already been announced?
Exactly. So last week we heard news from the Enhanced Games organisers that one of their athletes, a Greek swimmer, his name is Christian Golomev, has already been awarded that US $1 million for breaking the 50-metre freestyle record as part of the Enhanced Games program.
Wait, but the Enhanced Games haven't happened yet.
Exactly. But he has already signed on and he's been working with Enhanced Games organisers and professionals under this kind of doping program.
Whoa.
So he's been doping under supervision.
Yeah.
He's a 4-time Olympian himself, but in February this year, he swam the 50-metre freestyle in 20.89 seconds to break the world record, which is 20.91 seconds. So a 2 millisecond gap there. He was using performance-enhancing drugs, as I mentioned, during that swim. He was also, interestingly, wearing a swimsuit that's not approved by FINA, that's swimming's governing body. You might remember a while ago there was
Roman Empire
controversy around these super suits. Yeah, he was wearing band swimmers, but
because they make you, or it's alleged they can make you swim faster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the legal world record, which was set in 2009 by Brazil's Cesar Cielo, still stands at 20.91 seconds. But Cielo set that record in a super suit, in that same swimming costume. So a little bit of fun trivia there for you. That record won't be recognised by World Aquatics, the recent one from the Greek swimmer, but it's good enough for the Enhanced Games, and he's been awarded that big prize, which means Magnussen has missed that opportunity.
Sorry, I still can't get my head around this though.
Yeah.
The games haven't happened, but they've already awarded, like what if Magnussen were to swim faster down the track?
Then he can get the million himself. But he did have a crack at it recently and he's 2 seconds off the mark.
Gotcha.
So he is pretty far off, I would say. 2 seconds is a lifetime when we're talking swimming, world records.
Yeah.
So Magnussen has missed out on that opportunity, but he's still going to compete at the Games and he'll still be paid for his participation. According to the Enhanced Games website, all competitors will be, quote, fairly compensated. It said, "We are pleased to confirm that top-tier athletes will receive a 6-figure base salary. Specifically, the winner of each event will receive US $250,000. And there's that world record fee, but also other world records broken in other events will receive a $250,000 bonus.
That's
Athletes are also going to be paid appearance fees for their participation. So even just for showing up, you stand to make at least 6 figures.
Wow. It's really fascinating. And one of the things that I was looking at last week, there were photos posted of James Magnussen before he took performance enhancing drugs and afterwards, and the transformation that his body has been throughout this process is just crazy.
It's so significant, and that's obviously spurred on controversy and debate surrounding the ethics of the whole thing.
Completely. I want to know though, we've obviously seen and heard a lot about James Magnussen. You said that he has really become the face of this. Are there any other Aussie athletes that we're expecting to see compete in the Enhanced Games?
So interestingly, there is another Aussie who has hitched his wagon to the Enhanced Games, and that is 2-time Olympic swimmer Brett Hawke. He won't be competing, but he has been named as the head swimming coach for the Enhanced Games. He's a former Olympian. His best result was 6th in the 50-metre freestyle at the 2004 Olympics. He is reportedly going to earn $250,000 a year for his role. That's 380,000 Australian dollars per year. So we know there are 2 Aussies going to be involved in some form. And of course, the founder of the Enhanced Games is an Aussie, so plenty of Australian representation, and there could be more names to come.
Now, Em, you mentioned a launch event last week. What did we learn from that event? Because between Enhanced Games first being announced and then the launch event, it had been quite a while, and I'd semi-forgotten about it, if I'm to be honest. What did we learn from the event?
So what we learned from the event is that the Enhanced Games are going to take place for the first time next year in Las Vegas over 4 days in May. So this time next year, to be precise. And speaking from Vegas, D'Souza said, in 50 years, we'll look back and realize that biology was never the ceiling. It was only the starting line. He said, we'll be faster. Exactly. It's all very philosophical from D'Souza. He said, we'll be stronger, we'll be younger for longer, and we'll wonder why it took so long for society to catch up to science. And during that address, we also heard more about the event lineup for the Enhanced Games. So the inaugural games will feature a pretty small program. There'll be 4 swimming events, 50 and 100 meter freestyle and butterfly. Track and field will feature the 100 meter sprint and 2 hurdles events, and weightlifting will also be on the schedule.
Okay, so Em, we've gotten this far into the podcast without talking about the opposition to the Enhanced Games, and it would be irresponsible of us not to highlight that there is very strong opposition from across the sporting world to this project. Can you just outline to me what the concerns are and where they're coming from?
I think it's a particularly Australian gripe, this anti-doping stuff. We have seen our own athletes protest against swimmers from China, for example, over concerns of cheating and unfair competition. The concept of the Enhanced Games has certainly sparked significant debate, and global organisations have flagged these concerns over athlete well-being, whether that's physical health or mental health, and these concerns around what taking prohibited substances might do to those athletes. The Enhanced Games has pushed back against these concerns. It says all of its athletes will undergo health testing, blood tests, heart and brain screening, but it's fair to say bodies like World Aquatics have been scathing.
Yeah.
It called the Enhanced Games a circus built on shortcuts. A statement from swimming's world governing body said, quote, the enduring power of athletes to serve as role models for children and adults alike relies on their talent, hard work, respect, and friendship. That's what we see in our champions and in our competitions, and that's what we will continue to showcase. TDA actually reached out to Sport Integrity Australia CEO David Sharp last year when there was a bit of conversation about the Enhanced Games. He called this idea of the games grossly irresponsible and said, quote, the use of performance-enhancing substances poses an unacceptable health risk to athletes. And the US Anti-Doping Authority has accused the event's organisers of looking to make a quick buck at the expense of kids across the world thinking they need to dope to chase their dreams. D'Souza reiterated at this launch event in Vegas that rigorous protocols will ensure that athletes are safe and that the event can go off effectively and ethically. He also announced an upcoming line of performance products and said the Enhanced Games is laying the foundation for a healthier, stronger, longer future, one built on science, safety, and self-determination. That theme of self-determination has really come up time and time again. They're saying, this is a choice. We're being transparent about this. It's up to the athletes. So whatever happens, it's going to be fascinating to watch. And as we learn more about qualification and who else is going to participate, we will be sure to keep you guys updated.
I am genuinely very invested in finding out whether this will be a one-off or whether we are heading towards this direction in this world that the founder speaks of, where that is normalized. From here, it seems impossible to imagine a future where athletes are openly doping, but perhaps, that's where the future is going, and this will be one step. We'll have to see what happens.
It's really evolved the conversation from, I think we always talk about every Olympics when we see world records get smashed time and time again. You do think, how much further can we take it? How much faster can we get? And this is just sending those conversations into the stratosphere.
It absolutely is. Well, Em, thank you so much for explaining that.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for another episode of The Daily Aus. We will, of course, be back with the headlines later today. But until then, happy Monday.